outside edges parallel, so the big toes are in. Feel that as the heels pushing out rather than the toes pulling in. Just turning away from the heel in order to press the heel out. So like you're pushing backwards with it, or that way with the heel, and then just this way. So it's like you're working the heels apart with the turn. I mean, the heels, they're not moving on the floor, but there's pressure in that direction. And then let's try a bit of the arm one with the palm faces out. feel or try and feel the difference between the two minds. So what we try to do is keep the small mind, the mind that's with the here and now, occupied so that it can't get distracted and start thinking to itself. And then the big mind opens up. So that's what we want to just try and get a feeling for. So let's just try the figure of 8 around the waist or around the feet or around the hips, however you think of it. So that's just tracing. I'm using my mind to trace a line. So this is my small mind. My individual mind, my immediate mind. So the more I can see this line, and the more I can stay with it, the more likely the big mind is to open up. The previous exercise we did, where we traced down the arm, it's the same as this really. It's an exercise in the small mind, just keeping it occupied, bright and empty, just watching this trace. It's careful, but it's also encouraging. So you keep the small mind on this trace. So as I turn here to the left, the small mind is very much concentrated here. It's encapsulated, I've enclosed it. And then the big mind will open up, or the energy, if you like. The big mind is just the energy, will open up around here and come out. So the first exercise we did, where we were just sort of turning to push the heels apart, is more like the energy. So I'm keeping my mind on this trace. Then as I turn past the front towards the side, my back side will open up and send energy out. Just notice it without letting your small mind come off this tracing figure of 8. into riding horse proper. Feel the heels sort of swelling apart. Feel the sacrum just held loosely by your hips, hanging down. So a lot of the tension that we're trying to release now is tension that has become instituted over the years, so that the mind doesn't need to be present, so that it can actually go on its own walkabouts. Trying to release those tensions just requires the mind to come back to you, to come back to the moment. And it's difficult because everything just feels just more unstable. So what's holding you in position is your quietness and your balance, rather than your tension that's holding you together. So when you meditate and you look at the ego, what you realize is that it's basically made of two things. It's made of resentment and self-pity. And so we combat that by just instituting two qualities which are so important in Tai Chi. Ruthlessness, to cut through the self-pity. So you're ruthless with yourself. This is the whole idea of discipline. You sit down and you do the practice, or you stand up and you do the practice, regardless of whether you feel like it or not. And then the other is softness, cutting through that resentment, that anger that you have against the world for not being the way you expect it to be. We just combat that with softness. So softness and ruthlessness. So very similar to the first thing that we did today. So what I want to feel is that as I turn this way and I draw my attention and my weight into this foot, it releases this tentacle of energy out of this side of my sacrum. So instead of using the hands now to trace what the small mind is doing, I want to use the hands to gesture the energy, if you like. So I'm just turning this side and something will just ooze out of the sacrum. And then I turn back. So normally what happens is when we turn one way and the energy comes out the other side. And then when we turn this side, the energy switches round. What I want to do is get that energy to envelop me. So that's basically what ward off is. It's having brought the energy from behind around. So I turn here, the energy comes out, and then I turn back, but so gently that the energy wraps around me. So that's what the ward off is. Instead of just scarpering and coming out this side, it wraps around me here. So when I'm in this foot now, I'm contained, not just with my mind, but with my energy. And then this has allowed some energy to come out of here. So we're just trying to turn back very, very softly and gently. So like you're trying not to frighten something away that's exposed itself whilst you had your back to it. So it really has to open here to create space for you to come into it. And then this one has come out. So this is a real exercise in softness. Just the quality of the return. So you're rolling up. It's a bit like rolling a carpet. You're just rolling into yourself, and you're rolling into your energy. So for the energy to come out here, I see it, but I also have to relax it. If I relax, then it will empty, remember. And then here, this is like the filling. I'm filling with the ground, and I'm wrapping into my own energy. Remember that phrase of John's, the natural process reveals itself when gazed at softly. So this is very much in evidence here. It's our softness, our absolute respect and feeling for the energy that allows this process to set up and continue. And then feel this return, this turn into the energy being instigated by the back foot. So it's the back foot gripping the ground with the toes and trying to turn this way that is actually rolling me round. So it's pulling with the foot. So it's the foot on the side of the energy that's expressing, that rolls me back in. So there's a sense that it's your own energy that's actually rolling you round into it. But to get there, we really need to go that sort of gentle, respectful route. You can't just immediately just bang into it, because then it's coming from the wrong mind. So the energy that's come out here wants to roll around, and it's that pulls me back into it. So it's the feet pulling together, really. And then here the feet are sort of pushing apart to get the energy to come out, and then rolling back. And then into riding horse again. Just check your feet. Best to be in too much than out too much. Now let's just just breathing, but with the reverse breathing. So sucking the air in and then letting it come out. So the sacrum, we want to remain flat and vertical. So if my head is going to come forwards here, my tail has to come under. Otherwise, my sacrum will angle backwards and I'll be sticking my bum out effectively. And then just with a little bit of turning. So as you open the hands, just turn a little bit. And then as you close, come back to the front. The feet are trying to do the same as the arms, the hands. So here my feet are trying to pull together, and here my feet are trying to push apart. And then gradually stretch the turn. So you should almost be able to turn right round. And then back into riding horse. Let's try just a little bit of the breathing the ground. But the heels are trying to go out, but also the knees are trying to go out. This is what makes this really difficult. Feel how it's really conditioning the feet. So the feet are having to become stronger, especially my big toe driving down into the ground. So no sense of the ankles collapsing inwards. So the ankles are really pushing out. Let's just try just a bit more of this. Your small mind is with what you're doing, but you're aware at the same time that something is going on in your energy around you, especially around your back. We're creating like a container or a prison, if you like, for the small mind, so that my energy can billow all around me. And now let's try the Chen style exercise that is sort of similar to. So the Chen style pushing hands. So person is attacking me with their left arm. So I yield this way. So I'm directing the hand, the arm through here. And then just before it passes me, I whip it out this side and then come forwards to strike. So I'm turning to my left, so really pulling the elbow in here. The palm is flat, and then you turn out. So this is a bit like what we've just been doing. So this is the bit that's a bit different. And then turning out, and then just extend the hand forwards. So I'm turning to my left, and then a small turn to the right before I then turn left again. So it's like a continuous left turn, but with like a blip, like a sudden opens the person up so that your attack can actually get inside. So this side, open and forwards. It feels like it's working with the sort of same energy. So I turn here, I'm directing the person into like the part of me, the part that I'm aware of. So my small mind, if you like. And that's allowing the energy to come out here, this whole side of my body. And then it's like what we were doing before was just turning very, very gently into it. So now you're turning here so the energy can come out. Then it's as though you just turn back and catch some of it and then just bring it forwards. So this bit here would be really quick. It would just be a flick in the hips if you were doing it in action. But for the sake of the practice, we just really expand this middle portion and then bring the energy in. So that bit here needs the same sort of respect and gentle coaxing as the roll did on the previous one. Feel it. Let the technique change the way you feel. The way John would put it, he'd always say, try and discover its secrets. So the secret of an exercise is its internal component. So what effect does it have on your energy and your spirit? And for it to get into the realms of energy, for it to get into the internal, you just need to do it for a long time. It takes time, so you have to give it time. For it to start working, you have to get into it. So to get into it, you have to get out of everything else that you're into. So out of self. It goes through a real range of feeling, because this is like the opposite of how it ends up, which is like this. And now let's try a little bit with the other hand. Now let's try just a bit of the full and empty. So it's like I'm trying to sort of push my heel out. So you just got to experiment with it. So the small mind, the concentrating mind, is with the filling. And then the energetic mind is with the emptying. So you're always turning towards the filling leg. And then just the cross energy. So I'm breathing the ground up here, and then I just let the energy come into the opposite side. So as I go into the foot, I'm going around the heel this way. So as though backwards around the heel, and then the energy comes up the instep, the inside of my leg, back into the sacrum, up the spine, and across down the arm. So here, I'm scooping the heel. Remember what we did last time with the figure of 8 in the foot? It's basically that. So I'm going around the heel. That's this part, bringing the energy up. And then I bring that up into this hand. And then it finishes with this bit here, just going over the top and into the toes. That's like the down rooting. Remember with John? You'd uproot the person, then smash them down. So it didn't finish with the uproot. You then closed it down, which brought them down with a crash. I'm coming around my heel, and then you don't need to close it very strongly. You just start going around the corner here, and that's enough to bring it down. I'm coming round, and that will give the whole thing a feeling of closure. This is what we want at the end of a posture. Otherwise, it will tend to leak. So now it's come up into this arm, and then it just closes around the back toes. So the problem with doing a continuous exercise is that it never gets closed. It has to remain open so it can bleed into the next one. But we really want to feel that catch here. So 1, 2, and then 1, 2, and That's one of the beautiful things about the figure of 8. It's a closed loop. It's quite open within itself because it goes both directions. So it's more open than the circle, but it's still closed. This is important in the form as well. You can do forms, especially sort of quick, brisk ones, where everything just bleeds together, but there should be a real sense of closure as each posture finishes. So just a complete figure of 8 around the foot. It's as it goes through the toes and hits the big toe, that's that point of crash. That's the crash landing, if you like. So this is, one of the reasons the big toes are so important. Not to direct your energy, but just to bring everything back down, bring everything down to earth again after the energy's gone up and uprooted. A little bit of the other foot. So first of all, just the full and empty. And then just bringing it into the opposite arm. So the energy comes up my left leg and is directed down my right arm. And I have to make sure that it's the right mind. So the two minds are very much working in tandem. So this is like the small mind has to start something off, has to start the movement into the back foot here. And that liberates the big mind then, and then the energy can go into that. And I have to just be really careful. I keep my small mind away from the action, off the action. So it is possible to use the small mind to direct the energy, and so you can create a whole system with the small mind, but it's not soft. There's no way in a million years it's soft, and it's quite nasty, and it's just serving the ego basically. It's not serving your better part. So we have to just keep that quiet. And just let something blossom out of us, and it may not happen, or something else may happen. So this is how you progress when you work energetically. You notice something happening in the energy that you hadn't noticed before. And then you can just bring your small mind and just gently just work with it, exaggerate it, try and dissect it, see how it's working. The important reality is not the one that you sense. It's happening before you. And it's so subtle and gentle. And if you try too hard to see it and to control it, you'll just ruin it. Bringing the energy up, and it just naturally just filters down into the other side of the body. And then just get the heels. My heel is, so there's a little turn here which makes this. So it doesn't make this do this, it makes that do that as well, because by the time you've got to the end of the posture, the two halves of your body are out of phase. So this is the thing, if you're using the controlling mind, then you just try to keep everything in phase and regular, and it shouldn't be. That will inhibit the energy. So here I'm going around this foot, brings the energy up here, and then as I clip round here, there's like a ricochet and this comes over. It's almost, this comes after in a way. It's whipped around the figure of 8 and come round. This is difficult. So you need a sense of humor. 1 in 100 may be decent. So the secret is just keep it loose and just let the action here be responsible for the energy. Yeah, so 1. So the big toe's definitely in, the heel's pressing out. but the little toes trying to sort of escape that constriction. So real spread across the toes. So feel the heels going out, just really opening across the sacrum. It's almost got the sense that it's sticking the bum out behind you, so you have to keep heavy there to keep it anchored. And then let's just bring it up. So again, with the outside edges parallel. So the heels trying to go out, which is opening across the sacrum, but the little toes trying to drift out as well. That's your spirit, if you like. The spirit tends to be in the small parts, the vestiges, little toes, little fingers, tail. And the legs just bent just enough so that this is soft.